John Day was an English dramatist of the Elizabethan and Jacobean periods. Life. He was born at Causton, Norfolk, and educated at Ely. He became a sizar of Caius College, Cambridge, in 1592, but was expelled in the next year for stealing a book. He became one of Philip Henslow's playwrights, collaborating with Henry Chettle, William Horton, Thomas Dekker, Richard Hathaway and Wentworth Smith. There are 22 plays to which he is linked. However, his almost incessant activity does not seem to have paid, to judge by the small loans of 5 shillings and even 2 shillings that he obtained from Henslow. Little is known of his life beyond these small details, and disparaging references by Ben Jonson in 1618 describing him as a rogue and as a base fellow. It may be indicative of his abilities that of all the writers who did a substantial amount of work for Henslow's companies, Day is one of only 2 not mentioned and praised by Francis Mears in his lists of the best writers in 1598. In Peregrinatio Scholastica, or Learning's Pilgrimage, a collection of 22 moral tracts written towards the end of his life, but not published until 1881, he laments that, notwithstanding industry, he was forced to take a nap at Beggar's Bush, and elsewhere he refers to being becalmed in a fog of necessity, having been passed over by credit and opinion. It seems likely that he was the John Day, yeoman, who killed fellow dramatist Henry Porter in Southwark 1599. If so, it does not seem have to interrupted his career. He continued to collaborate with writers such as Henry Chettle, who had written with Porter. Works. The first play in which Day appears as part author is The Conquest of Bruges, with the Finding of the Bath, which, with most of his early work, is lost. Day's earliest extant work, written in collaboration with Chettle, is The Blind Beggar of Bethnal Green, a drama dealing with the early years of the reign of Henry VI. It bore the subtitle of The Merry Humour of Tom Stroud, the Norfolk yeoman, and was so popular that second and third parts, by Day and Horton, were produced in the next year. The Isle of Gulls, a prose comedy founded upon Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadia, contains in its light dialogue much satire to which the key is now lost. But Algernon Charles Swinburne notes in Manus's burlesque of a Puritan sermon as a curious anticipation of the eloquence of Mr. Chadband in Bleak House. In 1607 Day produced, in conjunction with William Rowley and George Wilkins, The Travels of the Three English Brothers, which detailed the adventures of Sir Thomas, Sir Anthony and Robert Shirley. This play is a dramatic romance of a type that harkened back to the early decades of the public stage in London. In 1608 Day published 2 comedies, Law Tricks, or Who Would Have Thought It, and Humour Out of Breath. The Parliament of Bees is the work on which Day's reputation chiefly rests. The piece contains much for which parallel passages are found in Thomas Dekker's Wonder of a Kingdom and The Noble Spanish Soldier. The passages which echo The Noble Spanish Soldier include references to speaking Spanish which are only meaningful in the context of Dekker's play. This suggests that the Dekker play is the original, a possibility reinforced by the consideration that there is no known edition of the Parliament of Bees earlier than 1641. The 6 dramas by Day which we possess show a delicate fancy and dainty inventiveness all his own. He preserved, in a great measure, the dramatic tradition of John Lyly, and affected a kind of subdued euphuism, without ever wholly abandoning these characteristics. Day's comedy also reveals some influence of early Jacobean satirists such as John Marston, who like Day wrote for the children's companies. The Maid's Metamorphosis, once supposed to be a posthumous work of Lyly's, may be an early work of Day's. It possesses, at all events, many of his marked characteristics. His prose Peregrinatio Scholastica, A Learning is Pilgrimage, dating from his later years, was printed by H. Bullen from a manuscript of Day's. Considerations partly based on this work have suggested that he had a share in the anonymous The Pilgrimage to Parnassus and the Return from Parnassus. The beauty and ingenuity of the Parliament of Bees were noted and warmly extolled by Charles Lamb, and Day's work has since found many admirers. The date of his death is unknown, but an elegy on him by John Tatham, the city poet, was published in 1640. Publication. His works, edited by Bullen, were printed at the Chiswick Press in 1881. The same editor included The Maid's Metamorphosis in Volume 1 of his collection of old plays. The Parliament of Bees and Humour Out of Breath were printed in Nero and Other Plays, with an introduction by Arthur Symonds. An appreciation by Algernon Charles Swinburne appeared in the 19th century.